Code of conduct for the followers of the Imam. Majlis 17. The followers of the Imam should be sympathetic to one another. The followers of the Imam should be attached to one another. They should never allow self-interest to affect their love for one another. They should always be ready to help one another at the time of need. The Prophet says, "On the day of judgment, an angel will shout, 'Where are the men of self-discipline?' A group of them will come up and will be ordered to enter paradise. The angels will say to them, 'What kind of self-discipline did you exercise, which has entitled you to enter into paradise?' The men will say, 'We disciplined ourselves in our devotion to God, and in refraining ourselves from committing sins.' The angels will say, 'Enter the paradise. Excellent is the reward.' Again, the angel will shout, 'Where are the men of good actions?' A group of men will stand in response and will be ordered to enter the paradise. The angels will say to them, 'What good actions have you done which have won you the entry into paradise?' They will say, 'We forgave those who oppressed us. We sought union with those who cut us off, and we gave to those who refused to give to us.' The angels will say, 'Get in, excellent is the reward.' Again, the angel will shout, 'Where are the neighbours of God in the abode of peace?' A group of men will come up and will be ordered to enter the paradise. The angel will say to them, 'What have you done to make yourselves deserving of your neighbourhood of God in the abode of peace?' They will say, 'We used to love one another for the sake of God. We used to show attachment to one another for the sake of God. We used to sacrifice our interests for one another for the sake of God.' The angels will say, 'Get in, excellent is the reward.' There is no reward which can be compared to the reward of these groups. There are very few men who can make themselves deserving of such rewards. There are very few men who, when they love their brothers, love them for the sake of God. When they are attached to them, their attachment is for the sake of God, and when they sacrifice anything for them, they do so for the sake of God. Such people belong to that group about which God says, 'Excepting those who believe in God and do good deeds,' and there are very few men of this type. Most of the people who love others or show attachment to them or sacrifice their interests for them do so with a selfish motive. They either expect a return from them or do it for the sake of show and for the sake of being talked about as good men. The best way of doing these things is to do them for nothing but a reward from God. When one does them, he should be actuated by no other motive than his desire to please God and none else. But such people are very few. He who aspires to acquire these virtues should see that whatever he does for the sake of God. His eyes should be turned to God, and the reward from him should be near his heart. He should be particularly careful when he does anything of this kind for the Imams. When he does it, he should do it with the best of his intentions and the utmost eagerness. For pious deeds of this type are more than doubled by God. If a Momin loves his brother Momin and is attached to him, he is guaranteed by God to enjoy his neighbourhood in the abode of peace. But if he extends his affection and attachment to the Imam, he will be making himself deserving of a much greater reward. If he is sincere in his intentions, and if he is influenced by no other motive than his love for the Imam, then his reward from God will be beyond his imagination. On similar lines, when one pays from his earnings what is due to the Imam, he is required to do so with the purest intention. He should do what he does for the sake of God, and not for the sake of show, or making a name for himself, or for the fear that if he does not pay him, he will be lowering himself in the estimation of the Imam, and will thus be put to some trouble. For if he loves the Imam with some ulterior motive, his love will not be love for the sake of God. Similarly, whatever he does, whether he takes part in the jihad or serves him in any other form, he should see that he is actuated by no other motive than doing things for the sake of God. In this connection, I am reminded of a piece of advice I got from an old man when I was very young. Although I neither believed in his religion, nor was I satisfied with what he said, his advice is worth mentioning. One day, when I was engrossed in reading and writing, he said to me, "Oh boy, I would like to give you a piece of advice." I said, "It is welcome." He said, "Your engrossment in books will prevent you from doing good deeds. If you are over-attached to reading and writing, you will not like to give it up and do something else. Hence, let your motive for doing what you are doing be to act in the name of God and for a reward from Him. This motive of yours in itself will constitute a good deed." Although he was not 100% right, but there was some truth in what he said. If one acquires a right knowledge in the name of God, then his good intention is a good deed. But if one reads and writes and keeps himself engaged in the acquiring of a wrong knowledge, and he does all this for the sake of God, his motive will not be recognized and he will not be rewarded for it. On the contrary, he will be punished for doing the wrong thing, and his pursuit in this direction will be counted as a positive sin. Thus, if someone does a good deed and does it solely for the sake of God and for a reward from Him, he will be rewarded for it. But if he does it for the sake of show and acquiring of fame, his act will not be recognized as a pious deed. It will be an act of hypocrisy. The Prophet says, whether a particular act is meritorious or not depends upon the intention of the doer. Every man is judged by his intention. If one leaves his country for the sake of God and His Prophet, his migration is certainly for God and His Prophet. But if he leaves the country for acquiring wealth or for the sake of a woman he wants to marry, then his migration is not for God, but for the things which have prompted him to undertake the journey. The word act, used in the above tradition, stands for a good deed. If it is accompanied by a good intention, it becomes meritorious. If the good intention is missing, it ceases to be meritorious. But if one does a wrong thing with the best of intention, his wrong will not become a right. He will be punished for his wrong deed in spite of his good intention. Again, the Prophet says, "The intention of a mu'min is better than his action. God and His Prophet know best." But in my opinion, the tradition means that a good act without a good intention will meet with no recognition. For instance, if one refrains from eating and drinking for the whole day, but he does not do this for the sake of fasting, he cannot be said to have fasted. Similarly, if one visits Mecca during the pilgrimage season and performs all the rites of pilgrimage without intending to perform the pilgrimage, he ceases to be a pilgrim. If one stands, bows down and prostrates himself like the one who offers prayers, without intending to perform prayers, he cannot be said to have performed the prayer. In short, every good act must be preceded by a good intention. A good act without a good intention will be of no avail and will not meet with recognition. A good act ceases to be a good act if the good intention is missing. On the other hand, a good intention minus the good act is an act of piety and a profitable concern. The Prophet says, if one intends to do a good deed is recorded in his name. If he does what he has intended to do, then 10 good deeds will be recorded in his name. It is for these reasons that the intention of the mu'min is considered to be better than his good deed, because it is helpful to him, even if it is not translated into action. But a good deed without a good intention does the doer no good. One of the ignorant fellows once said to one of the Imams, "Is it fair that the one who disobeys God or commits sins during the short span of his life in this world should be condemned in the next world to eternal punishment?" The Imam said, "Yes, it is because his intention was to continue the sinful course of life, even if he had lived up to an indefinite period. Besides, he has persisted in this course up to the time of his death, without repenting for his sins. In short, evil intention plays as great a part in deciding the nature of punishment as a good intention does in bringing its reward." God says, "With regard to those who think ill of God, their evil thoughts are directed against them. Wrath of God befalls them. He curses them and makes room for them in hell. Their end is bad." Evil thought in the above verses means an evil intention. Again, God says, "You had all sorts of doubts in God." Here the mu'mins were put to the severest test, and they became shaky in their faith to a startling extent. God has, in these verses, taken the mu'mins to task for their evil thoughts. O mu'mins, acquire these good habits and practice them in your dealings with one another. Be sincere in your love for the Imams and your co-religionists. Love one another and be attached to one another. Be steady in your loyalty to the Imams and in your love for them. See that you never entertain ill will against one another. See that you are never cut off from one another. See that you never hate one another. Above all, see that you do not become stingy in parting with the money which you have been enjoined upon by God to pay. May God help you and us to do good. May He make us successful in the discharge of His duties, and may He guide us in this direction.